Hi, welcome back. I'm Tom. This is Global Time Traveler, where we're going to talk about watches from around the world, primarily looking at the lesser expensive models. But today, we are going to talk about one of the premier Japanese lines, CREDOR. Before we get started, though, I'd like to, if you're coming back, welcome. If you're new to the channel, glad to have you. I hope you'll stick around and come back again next time. This is my 4th episode. Jody, I'm catching up to you. Jody actually has about 1,250-ish videos online right now, and he does some great stuff. We took a quick look at my Erebus watches that I received from him last week, and they're superb. I'm very pleased with them. Jody, thank you. Additional shout out I'd like to give to Shane from Relative Time. I received a very nice message from him, and I appreciate it. I know everyone is busy. If they take time to send someone a comment or a message, it's much appreciated. Additionally, on the last video where we talked about affordable chronographs, I got very supportive messages back from Ferlin Mari, from Monchard, from Seagull, and for those that took the time to message me, I really do appreciate that. Today, let's take a look. I'm wearing my Bowcroft 40mm signature line in dark gray, 3-dimensional dial, automatic movement. Very nice watch on a mesh bracelet. Very pleased with this. I received 2 from Bowcroft last week and couldn't be happier. So today we are going to talk about CREDOR. CREDOR is the premier line in the Seiko family of watches. There's Seiko at their entry level, then King Seiko, which has a few models still around, Grand Seiko, which everyone is familiar with, and their top of the line is CREDOR. Right now, their top model is called an HE2. It's about $50,000, comes in precious metals, and it's a superb watch. Out of my price range right now, but who knows, maybe sometime in the future. We are going to focus today primarily on my Kuon. Kuon has some similarities to that HE, and we'll talk about what some of those are, and we'll take a good close look at the video. I've got 2 other CREDORs that we're going to address. One is a chronograph, and one is a day date with some unique functions on that. We'll take a few minutes and take a look at those. So without any further ado, let's get started. Welcome back. Let's get started taking a look at the watches. Here's the 3 CREDORs that we have available for us today. We have the Kuon here. We have our day date in the center, and over on the far side is the chronograph. The Kuon is going to be the primary emphasis of what we're going to talk about today. As you can see, it is a stainless steel Zaratsu polished case, very brightly polished. It's got a hand-wound spring drive movement inside with a power meter available there. And as you can see, it is very nicely decorated, all hand finished inside. And that Zaratsu polishing was brought to Japan by Philippe Dufour. And if you've heard of the name Philippe Dufour, you know he's in the same class with Louis Breguet, Hans Willdorf, obviously not a watchmaker, but very responsible for the watch industry as it is today, and George Daniels, some big names throughout history in horology. Now, with a highly polished stainless steel with no hardening coating, it's a little bit more subject to scratches. So I treat this as a dress watch, and I only use it if I'm going to be going out on some type of a very relaxed evening where there's no chance that I'm going to be bumping it on anything. But as you can see, it's a 39mm watch in diameter. It's 10.8 millimeters thick with a domed sapphire crown, very highly legible, as you can see. The hands are temperature blued steel with blued indices at the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock position. The other indices are printed, and as you can see, the dial is very plain in terms of minimalistic. It has the logo at the 12 o'clock position and that very smooth sweeping second hand for that spring drive movement. Now this particular spring drive is the 7R13. Okay, it has 72 hours of power reserve when fully wound. It is good for less than a second a month in accuracy, and specification is actually about 15 seconds per month. Now that porcelain dial that you can see is a high temperature treatment to set that porcelain in place. They get about a 10% pass rate for every dial that they attempt to do, which basically means that 1 out of 10 passes, the other 9 get thrown away. But that high temperature gives it a nicely domed, almost a crowned look to it. So it has a very nicely rounded look that blends in very nicely with the domed sapphire. As we said, it's a hand-wound movement, and it comes on this very nice 5-piece bracelet with a trifold clasp in the back. It clicks into place and opens very smoothly. Now, the one thing for me that is a bit of a drawback on this watch is that bracelet is integrated, and they do not make a leather strap that I can put on there. And so there's also no aftermarket strap that is available to be able to fit to this. I like the bracelet. Bracelet is comfortable, it fits nicely, but I'm a big fan of leather straps. That's just me, but everyone has their own preferences. Now, this watch is available in the secondary market for about $800 to $8,500. On Chrono24, you may find some sellers that have it for a little bit less. New on the Japanese market is about $10,000. It used to be a little bit less, but given the change in the strength of the dollar, things are a little bit more expensive right now. As I said, what I really like about this watch is it is a very clean, elegant looking piece. It fits nicely under the cuff of a suit or a long sleeve shirt, and it is a very nice piece to look at and for starting a conversation. So let's take a look at a couple of my other CREDOR watches. I don't want to go too long this time, so I'm going to be very brief with those, but I do these watches as well very much. Now we'll start off with the Chronograph. The Chronograph here, as you can see, has that kind of figure 8 look, at least that's how it looks to me, for the 2 subdials at the 12 and 6 o'clock position. There is also a power reserve on the right side and a running seconds over here on the left. Now, drawback for this, I find that the dial is a little bit busy and the minute and hour hands are very slender needle type hands, which makes legibility difficult at times, and you need to move your wrist to be able to see what the time is. So I do wish there was a little bit more contrast between the hands and the dial itself. But other than that, the watch fits very nicely. The mechanism is smooth to operate. This particular model, as you can see, the case back has a sapphire crystal, and you can see some very nice striping on that rotor. Again, highly polished case with a little bit of brushing on the sides, domed crystal, you can see, and nicely aligned pushers for the chronograph mechanism. This one has a 50-hour power reserve, is good to, I believe it's 30 meters of water resistance, and is a 40 millimeter in diameter watch. So this one fits me rather nicely. The Kuon as a dress piece fits okay, but as we get into the more sporty models, I need a little bit bigger watch to fit my big chunky wrist. This one came with a bracelet. However, bracelet was sized for a much smaller wrist than mine, so I had to go with an aftermarket strap with a deployment clasp on it. The CREDOR Day Date, I'm really a big fan of. I really like the feel and the look of this watch. I find the legibility to be excellent, and there's a number of features that I really like. I love the dial color. I love the three-dimensional look of the dial with the inset of the subdial at 6 o'clock position. It has a retrograde day indicator on the right side, so when it hits Sunday and it passes midnight, it'll snap all the way back down to the bottom to indicate Monday. The indicator at the 6 o'clock position is the date, the day of the month, and it does have a power indicator on the left-hand side at the 9 o'clock position. Now, normally, I'm a big fan of seeing the power indicators on the back of the watch, like we saw with the Kuon, but here it's rather small and subtle, It doesn't have the look on some of the Grand Seikos where it looks like a big fan that interrupts the flow of the dial, where this one I find to be rather acceptable. These have baton, very thin baton indices, as well as those thin silver, nicely finished hour and minute hands, and a very fine second hand with a counterweight on the aft end of it. As you can see on this, it has a pusher here at the 2 o'clock position to set the day, so rapid change on that. It is a solid case back on this, so no viewing of the movement. It is an automatic movement. This one has a 50-hour power reserve as well. It is a 4S76 4 hertz beat movement. And this one also came with a bracelet, but once again, as I bought this online from Japan, my wrist is quite a bit bigger than their previous customers, so I had to go with an aftermarket leather strap on this one. But I'm happy with that because, like I said, I really like the leather straps. This is 41 millimeters in diameter. It's a little bit thicker. It's about 13 to 14 millimeters thick with that dome sapphire on the top. And if you look at the shape of the case, it cuts in just a little bit on either side, almost a trapezoid look to it, which I find to be real attractive. Very, very pleased with this watch. I do wear it quite often. I've worn it in the airplane, and like I said, with the legibility, it's been absolutely fine. No problems whatsoever. Okay, those are the 3 watches that we're going to take a look at today. Just briefly, we're going to talk about the HE2, okay, their top-of-the-line model. As we said, if you look at the slide that's on the screen, it is very similar in appearance to the Kuon. However, some very distinct differences. All of those indices on the face, on the dial of that watch, are all hand painted by an artisan. It looks like they're printed and they're perfectly straight, perfectly symmetrical, perfectly equal in length and width. That is all hand done. There's only a few people in their artisan shop that can do that, and they spend an awful lot of time making sure each and every one of those is perfect. If you look at the back side of the watch and look at the movement, you'll see some of the decorating there. It flows up and looks almost like a flower with leaves along the stem. Very nicely put together. Thank you for being here today. I do appreciate it. As I said, I tried to keep this a little bit shorter than some of my other ones. I hope that you found it interesting, informative. If I got anything wrong, please send me a comment on that. Let me know. As I always say, I'm not an expert. I'm just an enthusiast. I try to repeat what I read and learn, and if I've got something wrong, it is my fault for doing so. Again, big thanks for the people who have reached out to me. I do appreciate it. I hope to hear from more of you. Any comments that you make, I'd be happy to reply to. Again, though, the haters don't really need to hear that. But if you've got something constructive, I'm happy to hear about it. So without further ado, thank you again for being here. Be well, be happy, and we'll see you again next time.